Let me tell you something women rarely say out loud. Once we've decided a man isn't the one, we don't argue about it. We manage it. We stay polite. We stay vague. We stay just engaged enough to avoid discomfort while emotionally moving on. And men mistake that softness for possibility. You think you're still in the game because the door was never slammed shut. But in reality, it was quietly closed while you were still knocking. Most men don't fail because they misread words. They fail because they ignore behavior that's already delivered the verdict. And there are unmistakable signs that reveal when a woman has mentally exited. Signs that tell you continuing to pursue her will never change her mind. Only your position. Women rarely say, "I don't want you," in a clean, direct sentence. Not because they're evil, not because they enjoy confusion, but because rejection, when spoken plainly, creates discomfort they'd rather avoid. So instead of words, they use behavior. And this is where most men get trapped. They keep listening for clarity and language while ignoring the decision that's already being expressed through action. Let's reset the frame. If she doesn't want to be with you, it's usually not because you failed to try hard enough. It's because she decided early, often subconsciously, and everything after that is just social management. Sometimes you're simply not her type. That doesn't mean you lack value. It means your energy, your presence, your masculine signature doesn't trigger attraction for her. Attraction isn't democratic, it's selective. And no amount of effort can negotiate desire into existence. Sometimes you're a rebound. You show up at the wrong time while she's still emotionally attached to someone else. She may enjoy the attention. She may even enjoy you. But she doesn't have the emotional capacity to move forward. You're not a choice. You're a distraction from unfinished feelings. Sometimes it's just not that deep for her. She likes the flirting. She likes being desired. She likes how you show up. But her investment never crosses into intention. Your entertainment, not direction. Sometimes she's too nice to say no. She doesn't want to hurt you. She doesn't want confrontation. So, she allows access without commitment. She lets you keep hoping because ending it feels harsher than letting it fade. And sometimes this one matters. She does say no, but you refuse to hear it. You reinterpret it. You romanticize persistence. You tell yourself she's playing hard to get. And in doing so, you override her answer because it doesn't match what you want. Here's the hard truth. Most men don't lose women because they lack effort. They lose themselves because they refuse to accept a decision that was already made. The illusion is thinking, if I just do more, she'll see my value. But attraction doesn't awaken through pressure. And when a woman wants you, you don't need to convince her to notice. When a woman is genuinely interested in you, communication doesn't feel like work. It flows. It expands. It invites continuation. So when every interaction with her feels clipped, delayed, or lifeless, that's not a misunderstanding. That's information. Short replies, one-word answers. A response that technically exists, but carries no energy. You tell yourself she's just not a big texter. But notice this. She has no problem texting other people. She's on her phone. She sees your message. She just doesn't enter the conversation. Because when a woman likes you, she doesn't shut conversations down. She opens them, then there's the silence. Messages left unread. Hours turning into days. And instead of asking why, you start explaining it for her. She's busy. She fell asleep. She probably meant to reply. No, she saw it and she chose not to engage. Here's the truth. Most men avoid. Silence is an answer, just not the one you want. And it doesn't stop there. You call her once, twice, and the phone rings out. She doesn't pick up. She doesn't call back. Or if she does, it's much later, casually, without urgency. Ask yourself something honestly. If she was excited to hear from you, would the phone stay unanswered? Of course not. A woman who wants you doesn't need reminders. She doesn't forget to respond. She doesn't consistently delay interaction while staying fully connected to her digital world. What's happening instead is subtle conditioning. Every time you accept low effort communication, you teach her that your presence is optional, that you'll stay available without reciprocity, that she can access your attention without investing her own. And once that dynamic is set, attraction doesn't grow, it erodes. Because desire thrives on mutual engagement, not persistence from one side. If you're always the one keeping the conversation alive, you're no longer connecting, you're performing. And no man should have to audition for basic interest. Pay attention to how often her life is busy, especially when it comes to you. She's always running somewhere, always juggling something, always needing to check her schedule. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. Adults have lives, responsibilities, obligations. But here's the distinction most men refuse to make. Busy doesn't mean unavailable. Busy means selective. Time is emotional currency. People spend it where they feel pulled, not where they feel obligated. A woman who genuinely wants to see you doesn't wait for life to slow down. She rearranges, she shifts, she creates space, even briefly, even imperfectly. When you matter, you're not squeezed in, you're accounted for. So when every plan with her feels tentative, delayed, or conditional, that's not bad timing, that's low priority. Notice the pattern. You suggest getting together. She says, "Let me check my schedule." And then nothing. No follow up, no counteroffer, no effort to reschedule. You're left waiting again, hoping she'll circle back. Here's what's really happening. You're not competing with her calendar. You're competing with everything that ranks above you on it: work, friends, random plans, sometimes other men. And each time you accept being postponed indefinitely, you quietly step down the hierarchy. This is where many men make a critical mistake. They interpret patience as strength. But patience without reciprocity doesn't signal confidence. It signals availability without value. If you have to ask for time repeatedly, you're already in a weakened position. If you have to wait indefinitely, you're no longer being chosen. And deep down, you feel it. That subtle imbalance, that hesitation before you reach out again, that internal voice asking, "Why am I the only one trying to make this happen?" Listen to that voice, because attraction doesn't grow in waiting rooms, and the man who has to beg for time will never be seen as a priority, no matter how understanding he tries to be. Watch when she says yes to you. Not what she says, not how sweet it sounds, but the conditions under which her interest suddenly appears. You suggest something simple: coffee, a walk, time together. She hesitates. She's busy. She'll see. But then something changes. A concert. She loves an exclusive event, a dinner, a trip, an experience she can't easily create for herself. Suddenly, her schedule opens up. That shift isn't coincidence, it's calculation. And this is where many men confuse attraction with access. If she only shows up when there's a perk attached, you're not being chosen. You're being used as a bridge to an experience. You're not the point. You're the vehicle. This isn't dating. It's a transaction. And here's the uncomfortable part. She's not hiding it. You're just avoiding what it implies. Because when a woman is attracted to you, you are the reward. Your presence is enough. The experience is secondary. But when your value is reduced to what you can provide, tickets, status, convenience, entertainment. You become replaceable the moment someone offers more. That's why these connections feel unstable. They don't deepen. They don't build momentum. They exist only as long as you're offering something she wants. And the moment you stop, the interest fades. Here's the truth most men need to hear. If your role in her life is conditional, you don't have leverage. You have utility. And utility never earns desire. It earns dependence. Temporary, opportunistic, and disposable. A relationship that starts with benefits ends when those benefits run out every time. So, if you notice that access to her attention depends on what you bring to the table, not who you are at it, that's not something to fix or optimize. It's something to walk away from. Because a man who must constantly offer in order to be seen is already losing ground quietly, consistently, and predictably. Pay attention to how she behaves when you're finally together. Not what she says beforehand, not how agreeable she sounds over text, but how present she actually is in the moment. Because this is where attraction either shows itself or exposes its absence. You sit across from her and her attention is elsewhere. Her phone lights up. She checks it then again and again. You're talking, but she's scrolling, listening halfway, responding just enough to be polite, and you feel it. That quiet sense of being tolerated, not chosen. Here's what most men don't understand. Attraction is physical before it's verbal. When a woman is drawn to you, her body leans in before her mouth does. She mirrors you. She closes distance. She finds reasons for proximity. Even small unconscious touches carry meaning. So when she consistently avoids physical closeness, no initiating touch, no relaxed contact, no comfort in shared space, that's not shyness, it's lack of desire. Notice the body language. Closed posture, minimal eye contact, subtle distancing when you move closer. These are not mixed signals, they're very clear ones. And the phone. That's not distraction, that's escape. If she's more engaged with what's happening on her screen than what's happening in front of her, it means your presence isn't stimulating her nervous system. You're not activating curiosity, tension, or emotional pull. Your background noise. That realization stings because it happens after you've invested, after the anticipation, after the effort, after you finally get the time together you've been waiting for. And instead of connection, you feel invisible. Here's the insight you can't afford to ignore. There is no such thing as silent attraction. There is no hidden desire that refuses to show itself through the body. If her physical presence is guarded, distant, and disengaged, that's not something you talk through. It's not something you earn later. It's information. And the longer you stay hoping her behavior will change, the more you train yourself to accept being unseen while she grows increasingly comfortable ignoring you. This is where confusion turns into addiction. Because sometimes she doesn't fully disappear. She gives you just enough. One day she's warm, engaged, flirty, present. The next she pulls back, goes quiet, feels distant. Then, right when you start to detach, she reappears. A message, a compliment, a sudden spark of interest, and your hope resets. This isn't emotional depth, it's emotional management. Hot and cold behavior isn't uncertainty, it's control. She's not confused about how she feels. She's very aware of what your attention does for her. Attention seeking works because it creates imbalance. You're left guessing, adjusting, overanalyzing, trying to figure out which version of her you'll get today. And in that process, you slowly lose your center. Breadcrumbing is subtle by design. She never gives you enough to move forward, but never withdraws enough for you to walk away cleanly. A reply here, a flirt there, a promise that never fully materializes, just scraps. Enough to keep you emotionally invested, enough to keep you available, enough to keep you as an option. Here's the truth most men resist because it hurts too much. She's not unsure about you. She's entertained by you. Your attention validates her. Your availability boosts her ego. Your presence fills gaps when she's bored, lonely, or not getting attention elsewhere. But when someone else captures her focus, you feel the cold immediately. That emotional whiplash isn't accidental, it's the byproduct of being treated as a backup. And the moment you realize this is the moment most men try to win harder, they become more consistent, more patient, more accommodating, which only deepens the imbalance because attraction doesn't grow from being endlessly available. And no woman suddenly respects a man who proves he'll accept uncertainty indefinitely. The hardest realization comes quietly. You're not her choice, you're her convenience. And once you see that clearly, continuing to pursue her isn't romantic. It's self erasure. At this stage, the message becomes unmistakable, even if it's never stated directly. She starts talking about other men casually, openly, sometimes even enthusiastically. She tells you about a guy she just met, shows you a picture, mentions how attractive he is, asks for your opinion, not because she values it, but because she feels safe enough to share it. Safe is the key word here, because when a woman desires a man, she doesn't bring other men into the conversation. She protects the tension. She guards the connection. She doesn't risk dissolving attraction by reminding him he's not the one. But with you, there's no risk. Sometimes she goes a step further. She tells you she has a friend you'd be perfect for, that you should meet her, that she can set you up. On the surface, it sounds kind, thoughtful even. But understand what's really being communicated. She's actively redirecting you away from herself. If she wanted you, she wouldn't outsource you. And then come the labels. Brother, bestie, you're like family. These words aren't harmless. They're boundary markers. They signal comfort without desire, trust without tension, access without attraction. This is the friend zone in its clearest form, not as a punishment, but as a classification. You're safe, predictable, non threatening, and that's what makes it sting. Because nothing about this feels dramatic. There's no rejection scene, no confrontation, no clear ending, just a quiet realization that you've been repositioned into a role where masculinity is neutralized. Here's the insight most men need to hear. Women are never unaware of the impact these signals have. If she's comfortable talking to you about other men, it's because she's already decided you're not competition. And staying after that decision doesn't make you patient or mature. It makes you invisible. Once a woman sees you as non-sexual, effort doesn't restore attraction. It reinforces the category you've been placed in. By now, the pattern should feel unmistakable. Not a single moment, not one awkward interaction, but a consistent direction her behavior has been pointing toward all along. She never initiates. If you don't text, call, or suggest plans, silence stretches indefinitely. Days pass, nothing breaks it. And when you do see her, it's rarely one-on-one. There's always a group, friends, noise, distraction, a buffer that keeps intimacy safely out of reach. That's not coincidence. That's design. Because being alone with you would force a decision, and she's already made it. Here's the test most men avoid because it terrifies them. What happens when you pull back? When you stop initiating? When you stop chasing clarity? When you stop making yourself available? If she doesn't notice or doesn't care? The answer was never hidden. A woman who wants you feels your absence immediately. She reaches out, she checks in, she reopens the door. But when you disappear and nothing changes, it confirms what your intuition has been whispering all along. You are never central, you are peripheral. This is the final stage where hope quietly turns into self-betrayal. Because at this point, continuing to pursue her isn't about belief anymore. It's about refusing to let go of the fantasy. You're no longer chasing a woman. You're chasing the version of her you imagined might choose you. And the cost of that chase is steep. You lose time. You lose self-respect. You lose the ability to recognize interest when it's real because you've trained yourself to settle for indifference. Here's the closing insight you need to sit with. When a woman has decided, she doesn't announce it. She demonstrates it repeatedly, quietly, consistently. And the moment you recognize that pattern is the moment you're faced with a choice. You can keep pursuing and slowly erode your sense of worth. Or you can stop, not as an act of defeat, but as an act of self-alignment. Stopping your pursuit isn't losing. It's not giving up. And it's definitely not weakness. It's the moment you reclaim control. Most men think walking away means admitting failure. But in reality, it's the opposite. The man who knows when to disengage is the man who understands his own value. He doesn't beg for interest. He doesn't negotiate attraction, and he doesn't confuse tolerance with desire. Here's the shift you need to make. Women don't respect men who cling. They respect men who choose. A man who can walk away calmly without resentment, without drama, sends a signal far louder than persistence ever could. He communicates that his time, energy, and emotional investment are not free and not endlessly available to someone who hasn't earned them. And there's a deeper cost you need to recognize. Every moment you spend chasing the wrong woman is a moment you're unavailable to the woman who would choose you without hesitation, the one who doesn't make you decode silence, the one who doesn't keep you guessing, the one who meets effort with effort. You miss her when you're busy proving yourself to someone who already decided. So stopping now isn't closing a door. It's clearing space. Space for clarity, space for dignity, space for real connection. If this message hit you, subscribe. Not for motivation, not for fantasy, but for understanding. For a mindset where you don't chase validation, you select alignment. Drop a comment and tell me which sign hit you the hardest. And if you know a man stuck in a pursuit that's draining him, share this with him. Sometimes the most powerful move a man can make is knowing when to stop.